And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
We got a Fox News alert moments ago. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announcing they are changing their policies to focus on free speech.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announcing a commitment to free speech online. The company admitting that they were pressured into it over the last 4 years under the Biden administration.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence.
It was really sent a chill up my spine because it made me wonder, what if Trump wasn't elected? What if this was the Harris administration? I wrote a column earlier that the Biden administration was the most anti-free speech administration since John Adams. But Kamala Harris promised to outdo that. Mm-hmm. And you really wonder, hearing that interview, what they would have done if, in fact, the election came out differently. The public spoke very loudly.
Wow, this is a big deal. Changes include ending its third-party fact-checking program and lifting restrictions on topics such as immigration and gender identity.
Well, is there anything more important to talk about? Also, until now, Meta used automated systems to scan for violations, but found they resulted in too much censorship.
Facebook funded a really creepy campaign years ago, trying to get young people to embrace what they call content moderation, what some of us call censorship. And it really failed in a spectacular fashion. It would be great if Zuckerberg could join Musk and create this powerful alliance for free speech.
There's been a change in Mark Zuckerberg. You've seen him as, respectfully, the nerdy kid, change over to the jiu-jitsu. He's put on some lean muscle. His viewpoints have changed. His posting content, when he does speak, he's taking a meeting with Trump, taking a different stance on certain things. Are these changes coming from him or from what the public is saying?
There's no question that the things that happen at Meta are coming from Mark. But there's also no question that there has been a change over the last 4 years. We saw a lot of societal and political pressure all in the direction of more content moderation, more censorship. And we've got a real opportunity now. We've got a new administration and a new president coming in who are big defenders of free expression. And that makes a difference. One of the things we've experienced is that when you have a U.S. president and administration that's pushing for censorship, it just makes it open season for other governments around the world that don't even have the protections of the First Amendment to really put pressure on U.S. companies. We're going to work with President Trump to push back on that kind of thing around the world.
And so that's the reason I'm hoping, regardless of the motivation, regardless of the fact that it's belated, we need help. This is the largest anti-free speech movement in the history of our country. I talk about that in the book. It's sweeping over Europe. Free speech is collapsing in Europe. This is going to be the line of defense for free speech. We're it. We stop it here or it doesn't get stopped.
And look what's happening in Canada. The liberal ideals are not working. We saw that yesterday with Trudeau stepping down, and now the Conservatives winning by a landslide.
There's no question that there's an opportunity here with a new president taking office, as I said, who really believes in free expression. And that's just going to give us the space to get back to those values that Mark has talked about for a long. Mark gave a big speech 6 years ago at Georgetown about free expression, about these values. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of political and societal pressure here and around the world that have pushed away from those values. We've got a real opportunity to reset, get back to them. There's a real opportunity here with President Trump coming into office with his commitment to free expression for us to get back to those values and really provide space for people to have the kind of discourse and debate they want to have. This is a great opportunity for us to reset the balance in favor of free expression. As Mark says in that video, what we're doing today is we're getting back to our roots in free expression. There's a number of changes we're making, but if I could, and just highlight three.
Yep.
First is, as you heard, we're eliminating the third-party fact-checking system. well-intentioned at the outset, but there's just been too much political bias in what they choose to fact check and how. So we're just scrapping it entirely.
What do you mean? You mean you?
The fact checkers.
You set up but they're yours. Right?
So the idea was they're independent fact checkers, but they've just been too biased. And so what we're going to do instead is adopt a system like X has of community notes. So we're just going to rely on our own community of users to provide people more information about what they're seeing. And we think that's going to work.
What is your reaction to this, and why do you think they're doing this now?
Well, that's the most interesting aspect of this story. I just wrote a book, The Indispensable Right, that talks about Facebook, Meta, and the social media companies. And we all love a redemptive sinner. It's just that it would be great if that occurred before you were caught. And we have a great deal of information now that does not really support the argument by Zuckerberg that they were unwilling partners forced into this by the Biden administration. They resisted calls from many of us for years to join Elon Musk, to reveal, for example, the Facebook files, which they resisted. They fought at every stage not to be transparent, and that finally collapsed. Now, that criticism aside, this is an important moment. Musk has been out there taking these slings and arrows throughout this process. As the only social media company that went full in on free speech. Zuckerberg would be a powerful ally. It would be a wonderful change.
So the second one is about the rules that govern content on our platform. They've just become too restrictive over time about what people can say, including about those kind of sensitive topics that you mentioned that people want to discuss and debate: immigration issues, gender. We want to make it so that, bottom line, if you can say it on TV, you can say it on the floor of Congress, you certainly ought to be able to say it on Facebook and Instagram without fear of censorship. So we're changing those rules. And then the last thing, if I could, we're also going to change how we enforce the rules. And we're going to make it so that there's way less over-enforcement and way fewer mistakes that actually make up the vast majority of censorship that people experience on our platforms. So big changes, all in service of getting us back to our values of free expression. Mark talked about this in a letter he sent to the House Judiciary Committee a few months ago. That sort of outlined the way in which we got a lot of pressure around COVID in particular to take down more content, even things like humor and satire about the pandemic and about vaccines. So we did experience that kind of pressure. The decisions we made ultimately were our own, but there's a real opportunity here with President Trump coming into office with his commitment to free expression for us to get back to those values and really provide space for people to have the kind of discourse and debate they want to have.